it was April Fool's Day, 2020, and I got a call from Doug McMillon, President CEO of Walmart, and he said, Deanna.
This is the Lifted Spirits podcast, where we raise a glass and discuss how we find meaning through family, friendship, art, career, and everything in between. Today we have an interview with Deanah Baker, who is the Senior Vice President of Women's Apparel for Walmart. And so she had a lot to say about her 30 years in that Fortune 500 company. So sit back and enjoy the conversation. So we're rolling. This is Deanah Baker. We met back in 93, I think, right?
Would that be your birth?
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty close.
I forget. How were you around when I was born?
I'd say, well, where were you born? Were you Little Rock or were you here?
Yeah, I was Little Rock.
It was right after. So,
Okay.
you know, your dad was one of my husband's groomsmen when we got married. And so that's where I first met your mom.
Uh-huh.
And there were already a few of you at the time, but not you, because that would have been 90. But then pretty soon after, when you moved up here and you were just a little guy, you and Justin played together, my eldest. So.
Yeah, so we grew up just backdoor neighbors. Mm-hmm. And we've also got, it's kind of hidden behind here, but this is Gia. It's a non-alcoholic, it's like an aperitif kind of thing. I was going to pour a little bit. We just got back from Italy, so I've kind of in that aperitif mood.
Yeah.
Like, oh, some of those are pretty good. And I think this one was on Shark Tank too.
What's the flavor?
I don't know. I'm really curious.
So this is a mystery to you. You might get to see us make some really weird faces
Exactly.
if we don't like it.
Yep. It's real reactions.
I don't know, Andrew. It looks a little bit like a bad Bloody Mary mix. We'll
I
see.
know. That's what the color is a bit off-putting.
Okay, I'm not going for
They didn't do a deal on Shark Tank, but she has been killing it, the girl who runs this thing. So,
all right.
I mean, it smells nice.
It smells okay.
Yeah, take a sip.
This might be the end of our podcast. Hang on.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty bitter.
It finishes like you drank grapefruit juice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely pretty bitter. It's not bad, but it's not like, ooh.
I'm not proud to say I tasted worse.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. But hey, gotta try it.
got to try it.
Yep. And so tell a little bit about just your story. What are your roots? Where do you come from? What's been your journey through life? Where are you at now? Just broad overview.
Well, let's see. So, you know, I am an Arkansan by birth and was raised in Russellville, Arkansas, which is kind of central in the state, if you all aren't familiar with the state. Made my way to the University of Arkansas for college. Didn't have a really broad scope of the world. You know, we're talking, I graduated 85, so no internet to help. But made my way to the university, majored in marketing. I did the whole sorority thing, got to practice leadership through that. It was probably my first foray into kind of being responsible for others.
Yeah.
From there, I was recruited to a small department store retailer called McRae's. I was one of 20 on their training program, so I moved to Jackson, Mississippi for that for a year. And learned what that was about. Got engaged, came back to Northwest Arkansas, and got married, and within 2 months joined Walmart. So I was one of their associate buyers.
So
And,
what year was that?
That would have been, we got married in 90, and 2 months later, so 90, with Walmart. And it's been just a little over a year that I have now retired from Walmart after 32 years. So pretty much my entire career was spent with that retailer and just growing through the ranks. And, I said I didn't have a broad scope of the world growing up, but certainly through, the adventure that's Walmart, it's kind of like getting a graduate degree. And I've been able to see the world and meet lots of different types of people and learn, all the ins and outs of business. I was in the apparel portion, so I led the apparel team. And, from that, know a lot about the industry, a lot of the suppliers, sourcing, that takes place around the world. So it was a wonderful education, and so fast forward now, for the last year I've been consulting, which I wasn't sure, what would I consult, for, and it's been a very busy year as a result. So people do find value in knowing what I know and how to get the job done, and just my point of view on merchandising. So that's been my last year, along with a lot more travel for fun, working out, spending time. We still have one at home. So 3 kids, age 30, 26, and 17. We all affectionately call him the bonus baby. But he plays football, and so spending a lot of time watching him do his thing it's been great to use my time differently. And it was a welcome change because what else does this life offer, and what else do I want to do? And it was time.
Yeah. And while you're at Walmart, what was your why? What made you excited about it, passionate about it, that kind of thing?
Well, it started out just, I wanted, to become financially secure, and I loved being a buyer, loved it. There's something so exciting about curating and putting on the floor what you think your customer is going to want a year from now. Right? So a lot goes into that. You take the expertise of suppliers, the trends, what you see in the competition, and, you're the advocate for the customer and being able to bring them the assortment that you think they'll want. And in Walmart's case, for the very best value you can. That's what Walmart's all about. And it kind of morphed into more of the customer we serve and really taking ownership of bringing the best quality that you could for this hardworking American customer. And then it morphed again as I went into leadership roles, how to develop the team of the future. And, giving them the intelligence that I had acquired and knowledge of the role, but also learning back from a younger generation. And so developing that team kind of became my why in the end, as well as setting and leading a well-thought multi-year strategy. So, as a buyer, you're worried about the season you're buying for. But as I grew, the length of the viewpoint, the strategy became longer. And, that takes time to develop. But again, the results were so satisfying, and that was also part of the why. But, now, Andrew, looking back on it, the friendships, the lifelong friendships through that journey are just precious to me. And I've caught up with so many, and they've gone on to do different things. Some still work at Walmart, but many, work for other retailers or have changed industries completely. So it's really the touch point of people, I think, that has had the most lasting effect.
And what's something you were a part of while you were at Walmart that you felt really proud of, like you'd made a difference in the world, whether that's a personal accomplishment or just like a team project or whatever?
Yeah. Well, I think probably the thing that
You're fine.
That's my husband, Tim.
It's old Uncle Tim.
Yeah, Uncle Tim to Andrew.
Monkey boy.
Okay, so what I'm really excited, or what I think back on that I'm very proud of, there were many things through those 3 decades, but I think one of the most recent ones, which really didn't have anything to do with my job description, right? And it was during the pandemic. And I was literally sitting at the desk behind you, and it was April Fool's Day, 2020, and I got a call from Doug McMillan, so President, CEO of Walmart, corporate, and he said, Deanna, I've been on a warehouse tour with Vice President Pence. He got a call from President Trump, and they need our help to try and get our hands on PPE gowns. There's a shortage in the U.S. They need our help. And I said, what's a PPE gown? And he said, I don't know. Why don't you go figure that out? So I'm like, yes, sir, I will.
That's what I was going to ask. You kept going on with the story, and I was like, oh, I don't know.
Yes. Well, a PPE gown is basically, if you go into an emergency room and they put you in a gown, it's not a fabric gown. I describe it more as a coated coffee filter, right? It's more of a paper type product, but it doesn't absorb any kind of liquid. So it has to meet a certain requirement. So the first thing I did was I grabbed our head of sourcing, and his name is Gokul Krishnan, good friend of mine. And he and I together figured it out, and we reached out to the suppliers that we know. What do you know about PPE? Where are they sourced? Well, the problem was they were all sourced in China, fabric in China, made in China, and there was a shortage. And so we were first connected by Doug with the McKesson company. So McKesson, is a pharmaceutical equipment company, and so this is their forte. So I was more of a connectivity between someone who could source it and then being able to deliver it to the U.S. And so we worked together. We utilized the U.S. air bridge first, and then the boats that were used just to, truck things over here as quickly as possible. And through our efforts, we were able to get it back to the front lines and make sure that we had enough PPE gowns in the U.S. So the claim to fame was, yes, we were able to secure gowns, and where the creativity came into this was, like I said, no more fabric. Well, what do? I mean, it has to meet a certain requirement to be utilized in emergency rooms. And so we reached out and found out what the requirements were, reached out to some of our suppliers who produce in Central America. And why that's important is Central America is pretty close to the U.S. as far as being able to transport product. Also, the suppliers were able to get workers to their facilities and get the approval to bring people in to make products. And so we were able to take a t-shirt material. So think about like a Nike dry fit shirt as an example. It's quick drying. It's got a high polyester content or 100% polyester content. And then they were able to put a coating on it so that it would be impermeable to liquid. It was about 3 times the cost of a normal PPE gown, but we were able to make enough until we could get our hands and get other facilities up and running with the traditional fabric that those gowns are made from. So it was really a great stopgap to be able to service the U.S. quickly. And so within the first 60 days, we were able to deliver 10 million gowns.
Wow.
Right? I mean, just huge. While we're waiting and getting prototypes in here, Gokul and I met with our mask on and total protocol, and went down to the local Mercy Hospital and met with their staff to say, this gown looks different. Would you accept it and use it? And they're like, we're down to, we're a step above trash bags. So yes, we would absolutely, utilize this. So this was like real time, like, I don't make PPE gowns. I don't know what I'm doing. But it was just asking all the questions and being able to fill the gaps. So fast forward, I told you about the first 2 months. By the end of it, within the remainder of that year, we were able to deliver 186 million PPE gowns. And so I
more than half the U.S.
Yes, well, it's just 186 million PPE because they're disposable. They use them. They just burn through those. So we were able. They went to nursing homes. They went to dental clinics. They were more than just frontline workers by the end of it. But even our suppliers benefited. So some of the ones who I said were able to then get back into the traditional fabric set up new lines of production. So we have Korean-based suppliers who are now making PPE gowns. They're not all made in the China facilities anymore. And I think that's one thing that we learned across the U.S. is diversity of where products are made are a really healthy thing, right? So not to have all of your eggs in one basket. It's really smart to be able to diversify that. And so I'm happy that through our efforts, in a small way, that was accomplished, right? So had nothing to do with apparel and what I'd been trained to do over the 30 years, but just, really proud of the small part that I was able to play in that.
Yeah, well, that is really neat. That's so much of life and business is just rolling with the punches and figuring out, here's a big problem. I don't know what to do, but I got to figure something out, adapt and evolve. So
Exactly. And I think, I'm sure there's hundreds of examples that you can ask of people of what they had to do during COVID, when it wasn't their day job. And, just being able to lean into expertise where it meets creativity and the connections you have with other people, we're able to, to produce what we did.
Yeah. And starting there at Walmart in basically 1990 and onward, this is kind of a long-winded question, but how did you navigate work-life balance as a woman and as a mom? And because Alexis, my wife, is applying to medical schools and things, she's realized that she's just not a stay-at-home mom, and there can be a lot of emotions wrapped up in that, and everyone has a different opinion. So how did you navigate that, and what's advice you'd give to women in a similar situation?
Yeah, that it's a conversation that I've had with many women as they've gone through different stages of life on my team at Walmart, because that's the big head scratcher is, at least at Walmart, 'cause that's the only vantage point I have. You are extremely busy, right? It's all encompassing. You want to be successful. Retail moves very, very fast, and it can be stressful. And when I first started, I was 23 years old and had been married 2 months. So something had to give right off the bat. Well, it starts with having the right support system from day one, which, we were newlyweds. But Tim and I were very clear on roles. Even before I had the job at Walmart, I said, you know what? I don't think I'm a domestic person. I was raised an only child. So it wasn't like we had my mom and I had a lot of the traditional family values where, a big family meal every night. She and I would certainly have dinner together, but a lot of times eating out was more economical than making a meal and having a lot of leftover food that we didn't, eat. And so, I told him I have aspirations to, be a successful businesswoman. And he knew that when he married me, he knew my personality. So the first thing that went was it arrested my cooking ability. I never learned to cook. Like literally I can do anything. It starts with ground beef in a jar of something. I can manage. I can do breakfast food. No one's going to starve here, but it's certainly not going to be exciting. But the reason it worked is because from the very beginning, he knew and appreciated and accepted the type of person that I am, and vice versa. And, he was a coach and teacher. And so especially when you're coaching football, he was at the junior high level, your summer all the way through Thanksgiving are pretty much taken up, with, if you're not coaching into the evenings, you're watching film footage. That's pretty much your life. So this is where my in-laws came in. So Earl and Joanne Baker were lifesavers, literally. By the time we had Justin and Rachel, I'm a very busy Walmart buyer. Tim's a coach and teacher. And I'm taking the kids to daycare before and after work, which just did nothing but book in the stress. Trying to get them, there on time and make sure they're fed and, are ready to go at daycare and picked up on time. You don't want to be late, start getting overcharged. But at some point in there, Earl and Joanne said, if you can move closer to us, then we would like to help you with childcare. And so by the time they finished the sentence, I started packing the car because we desperately needed some help. And so we moved to Springdale, which is where we are today, all these years later. And they would literally, Andrew, they were such a blessing. They would pick my kids up in the morning, take them to their house, feed them a hot breakfast, drive them to school. Pick them up from school. My father-in-law would sit outside with all the dance moms while Rachel, took her dance lessons or whatever, athletic program Justin was in. And then when I would, come in dark at night, there would be some simple meal on the stove for us to eat. And that sustained us for several years. So I tell you all of that story because no one person can do it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people have to let go of the guilt.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look the same for every family.
I would end up at your in-laws a lot too after school, and
just come on. There's extra food, Andrew. Help
pick me up
yourself.
with Justin. I think I was over there once when I wasn't supposed to be. I thought I was supposed to go home with them because I just remember being at their house and the police coming because they
We're out of pocket.
We're like, where's our child?
We're missing the fourth kid. Where is he? Yeah, that's funny. I didn't know that story.
Yep.
But yeah, they would basically feed whoever showed up. But you need a support system. I mean, end of the day, and whether you can afford, a nanny, a college student, someone to help you, whatever it looks like for your family, I would say do it and drop the guilt. Whatever works for you. I remember asking Justin, hon, I can't be at every practice, or sometimes I need to travel. I can't be at every game. What matters most to you? And so I could be where he wanted me to be and make sure that he knew I was supporting, him and was interested in what he was doing. That included a couple of awards assemblies that he didn't tell me about, which I had to find out from moms of girls in his class. I always found out that the daughters were much more communicative to their mothers than Justin was with me. But nonetheless, you do what you can do. And the first thing we did was I outsourced house cleaning. To come home to a house that was clean with some laundry done took away a stress and allowed us to enjoy each other differently than feeling like we always had to, have that on top of whatever else we were doing. So I tell the young women that I come across, what do you hate doing? Can you outsource it? What do you have access to, or what resources do you have? How does your spouse feel about it? How can they help you? And then craft kind of your support system around what you want to do. And sometimes that means that your career does need to take a back step. Be content where you are. Do a great job where you are because it's not your season of life to push forward.
The whole, you saying asking Justin of what's important to him, that makes so much sense. I've never thought of that, and our kids are 3 and 1, so not quite to that stage. But I don't think even I as a kid my parents were very involved, but it's not like I needed them at every practice or anything. So just, being realistic and saying what's valuable to you, because they'll just tell you.
Yeah, they will. They will tell you. And so that's how we managed through. Now, as Earl and Joanne got older and their health failed, and eventually Earl passed, and we had, the bonus baby I'm telling you about, who was 9 years younger than our number 2 child, Rachel. At that point, we had to make a shift, and Tim said, "You know what? I think I've done my gig, coaching, teaching," and so Tim retired, and his job became Evan. And living, vicariously through sports, baseball, football, which Tim still loved, and could coach his own son from the sidelines a little bit, in an off hours. But that's again as I continued to elevate through Walmart and became a senior vice president and leading the apparel team. That again was a balance in how our family worked. But again, it started because Tim knew who I was. I knew him, and he always supported me. And, I've been blessed to have a spouse who thinks I'm all that even when I don't, right? When I'm fatigued, tired, unhappy with the way something's going at work or in life or whatever, to have a spouse who's always rooting for you in your corner, not everyone gets that, So does that support system, if you're a single person, what's your friend group like, Do you have are you a person of faith? Do you have a church group, friends who will really be in your corner when chips are down? And whatever that looks like for you, you can't do it by yourself.
The whole outsourcing, that's a big lesson that we've been learning, because I think Alexis was more running off of, not like her parents or anything or anyone forced her to do the whole mostly stay-at-home mom thing, but she just realized this is not for me. She's very driven. She wants to be a doctor, and I'm very driven too. And so we're figuring out what are the things that we're good at. For one, we feel like we're actually good at, and try to outsource the other kind of work that's taking up our busy time, even if it's barely in the budget. In our mind, it's like it'll free up so much mental space that ideally you'll make more money doing what you're good at and, enjoy life more.
It's true. It really is. It's true. And no one person can do it all. You know, when people talk about work-life balance, which to me, it's a seesaw. You know, there is no balance.
Yeah.
It's because you go through different phases of life and your needs change. And, you know, I'm in the phase now, you know, as your parents age, you know, how do you take care of them, and what does that look like? Does that mean they move in with us, or does that mean they go to an assisted living place because they, you know, want to still have some independence? How is their health? And that can change, you know, on the daily. And so it's not a one size fits all, even for the same family. You know, it'll change.
Yeah. And being there at Walmart, starting in 1990 and up to 2020, did you feel like the way that women were treated in business has changed a lot, or any kind of experiences, or what was that like?
Well, when I started in 1990, obviously, you know, I don't know, because I've worked for one retailer and I've seen the retailer grow and mature over 3 decades, right? So when I joined in 1990, a lot of smart people at Walmart all along the way. But I would say that the successful examples were more of one type of leadership style. And there were women, obviously, in some leadership roles, but specifically in merchandising, buying, where I was, you didn't see a lot of local talent rising to the vice president level. What I was witnessing through the 90s was people, women, men and women, but women in this case, coming in from other retailers into the vice president's role over an area. They would stay for a few years, and then it would either go south and they would be asked to leave, or they would leave, or they go on to bigger, you know, adventures. And then one day there was a woman, and she said, "Deanna, I'm very impressed with what you're doing. I would like to see you be able to really take care of your family and grow as a leader in this organization. And we're going to create a role that doesn't exist today." And it was a role between being a senior buyer and a vice president. Like I told you, there was like this jump, and no one was making it that had grown up through the organization. So it was this middle manager position at the time, and I did very well at it, and then I was promoted to vice president. And so fast forward all these years, you see many more examples of it. I think the organization, though, also grew and matured, and so now you see people coming from other industries, even other retailers, and there's more diversity of thought. You know, and I think that makes for a healthier organization. And it doesn't mean we all agree on any particular subject or in a meeting, but it certainly helps you arrive at the most well-rounded decision at the end. And, you know, I see that for both men and women. And that diversity of thought, again, taught me, because I worked for many different people through that time frame that thought differently. And, you know, you take from it what you want, what works for you, and what doesn't, you just drop. But from it, I was able to really, I think, grow into a better leader.
Yeah. And so when you retired at Walmart, what was your title? I forget.
Yeah, I was a senior vice president, general merchandise manager, apparel.
Gotcha. And this is one of those questions where, you know, if something, we can always cut something if you don't want it in it. But it was a question that I was curious about, because running a small business of my own, I've just grown in appreciation for business in general. It's not easy to run a business. And I've grown in my appreciation for bigger businesses? Because for a lot of people can hate on bigger companies, whatever it is, Apple or Walmart. So what would you say to the haters that, say, oh, big business is bad or whatever?
Yeah. Walmart's struggle with that. There's always going to be a certain portion of people, I think, that don't understand. And, sometimes what you don't understand, your first response just is going to be no. Mm-hmm. But I would challenge anyone that feels that way to really seek to understand and get the truth first, because there are a lot of, urban myths about, big business putting out mom and pops. And what they found was, and it may sound like, I'm all in Walmart, but that it actually brings competition to an area. And in fact, that's why Sam Walton started where he did with the first Walmart stores, is he wanted families in rural America to have access to the same pricing value as people in larger cities. That's the reason he started where he did. And then, of course, now they're like everywhere, right? So Walmart is, across America. So it does encourage competition. It does bring greater value to smaller rural areas, and even access to, urban cities now that you see where there are food deserts even. So I think it's to the benefit of the customer. Also, there are things that Walmart will never be able to do that small retailers can do. Walmart is huge. It's hard to move. It's hard to make change. The smaller you are, the more nimble you are. The more you can respond to what your customer wants, the more you can respond to trends and changes in the customer mindset, and even more customization you can do. You know your customer, right? You have a personal relationship with people in your town or your city. That's hard, the larger the retailer. So I feel like they can complement each other well. And I think what it has forced the smaller businesses to do is to adapt. And what is the reason for being? And I think it's that you can have a more personal relationship with your customer.
Yeah. And especially in Northwest Arkansas, there's just so many. There's the art museum and so many organizations that Walmart, or charities, that everything's this Walmart fund, that Walmart fund. Even I don't know if it's directly connected to Walmart, but I think Alice Walton is starting that medical school, and Alexa's hoping to apply there. And so they just do a lot for the local community.
They're a very giving family. We're very fortunate. I mean, you and I live in the best place on earth, I think. Maybe you don't want to tell everybody that, but,
Stop moving here from California.
Yeah, exactly. Stop. We like it the way it is now. Thank you. But honestly, the amenities that we now have because of, the Walton Foundation, and honestly, the skin in the game that they have for not just Northwest Arkansas now, but all of Arkansas, expanding out. We're very fortunate. So, and I'll forever be grateful for my, education that I got at Walmart.
Yeah. And say in the past year since you've retired, what's been your highlight the past year?
Gosh, it has to be reconnecting with friends, being able to spend more time with them and travel, as well as, more time with Evan. I think by having, Justin and Rachel, what it really, it has become blatantly obvious is how quickly time goes. And so to be able to spend, he's a junior now, and to spend his high school years more involved with what he's doing has just been a highlight of mine.
Yeah. And zooming out to just broader life and happiness, this is a question that I saw and I wrote down. I ask friends from time to time because I really like it. But what's a time in life that you would love to replay? Just something like a time or a season. It doesn't have to be a single moment, but where you just thought, man, this is it.
I wish I could go back to each of my children. So I would say this to you and Alexis. If I could take, those first few years and take away some of the distractions, just so that I could just watch them and appreciate their development and what they're doing, because life is so busy, right? And there's so many distractions. But if I could go back to each one of them in those, young years and just spend some more time with them, I would. I would. It's not like a regret, but I just remember that those times fondly. And so to go back and just re-enjoy that. And maybe that's what grandchildren are for. Justin, Maddie, get on with it. I would, but because what I hear the grandkids are like the gig to be the grandma, grandpa in this.
Yep.
And no, I haven't
drop them off at the end of the day.
I can. I haven't picked my grandmother name yet. I'm still working on that.
I'm very determined to just be a grandpa or something. I'm not about all the weird grandparent names. Each family to their own, but I just want to be grandpa.
Yeah, just straight up. Well, you're going to love whatever they end up calling you.
Yeah, and I've got
matter.
plenty of time before then.
Don't worry. Yeah, you certainly do. But, looking forward to that. So I would say revisiting their youth when they were little children again, just to be able to watch a little more closely.
Yeah. I saw plenty of Justin in his youth. He saw plenty of me. I remembered, while you were talking, I remembered a really funny story from junior high at Central of my first period was cross country, and I think it was one of those White Christmas, where they give the gifts, like everyone.
White elephant,
yeah. And the gifts that I got were these chocolates. What I didn't know was that they were actually laxatives. Like it was a joke that someone had given them to me. I go into my second period class, which is choir, and Justin's there. And me and Justin were kind of like her husband and my dad were kind of bully each other in a fun friend way. And Justin came up and, just snatched them out of my hand and said, "These are mine now," or, something like that. And I didn't care enough to get them back from him. So I forget how that story ended, but I'm pretty sure he took my chocolate laxatives that I didn't even know until later.
You know what? That's some poetic justice
It is.
there, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to ask him about that, what the follow-up was.
I bet you wouldn't eat more than one. 'Cause do they really taste like chocolate?
That's a good question.
I'm sure it's not like a Dove chocolate.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to be eating more than one.
Yeah,
But,
knockoff.
yeah. Ask him about that, Nick.
Oh, yeah.
He'll be here at Christmas. You can
Okay.
check in with him.
And then on the flip side of, moments you'd love to replay, what have been some of the hard seasons in life? And you don't have to go into detail of what all was going on and how did you find a way to get out of those darker points?
Yeah. Well, there's several going, everyone's going to have it. This earth is flawed and there's going to be problems. And whether it was, something at work, a tough season of life there, or with family, it's everyone. I don't know of anyone who has a perfect family, honestly. And, that can bring, sometimes I think the ones that you love are the ones that can cause you the greatest pain. And you have to work through it. And so I would say what got me through was probably a combination of prayer and asking for wisdom from God and to give me perspective, because left of my own accord, I don't know about you, Andrew, but I will swirl down a drain and, I'll wake up in the middle of the night thinking about something, and it's 10 times worse at night. I don't know if you feel the same way, but when you wake up and you're worried about it, it's just this reel that goes over in my head. So, asking God for perspective and, to help walk me through it, not to necessarily, did he, take it away from me, but I certainly can look in hindsight and see he carried me through every single time. And so, now that brings me to a point in my life, I'm like, I need to work more on my faith. So I believe it as I'm going through it, not in hindsight. So I'm trying to work on that. Couple that with, seeking someone who understands something about the situation and getting their perspective. So if it was at work, you might, you'll hear the term mentor. I never had one mentor for everything. I call them ad hoc mentors, but depending on the subject, there were a handful of people that I could trust that I could go and ask, them for. And if I use example of a work hardship, going to a woman at work, a little bit older than me, but not a lot, but very wise. And she would give me perspective on it because she understood the situation. And if she thought I needed to be tougher, if I needed to do something better, or how I could improve, or to commiserate with me, it kind of depended on the situation. But sharing the burden with someone else helped, because again, it broadened the perspective from which I was looking at it. And you're talking to someone who's probably at this point a little more reasonable about the situation than I created it to be in my own head.
Yeah.
So, it's connecting, I think, through prayer, connecting with people you trust, were probably the things that pulled me through.
And what's next on the horizon for you? Because I think a lot of people, when you hear retirement, people think, oh, like you're basically dead, right? No, but no, you got lots of life to live. And so what are you excited about? Like, what are you, just what's on the horizon?
Yeah. Well, I've been really busy doing consulting, which to me has been a really good break from corporate America, because I do need to decide what's next and not just slip into a 2.0 of the same thing, right? Like, what do I want to do? So I passed the phase of what do I need to do to, be, confident in my abilities and, frankly, to provide for my family, to a point of what do I want to do, which is, an incredible place to be in. I'm young enough to go do something else, but yet I'm also old enough to now be selective. And what brings me joy. So that is something I spent the last year thinking about. And so to answer your question, I do think, and it'll be God's plan and His timing, but I am missing leading a team. As a consultant, you can be a great individual contributor to different companies. And so I've been able to do it for 9 or 10 different companies. So you can kind of survey differences in the way they run their businesses. But I'm missing developing a strategy and leading a team through that. So we'll just have to see what comes in the next year. I want to be here again for Evan and see him through. Where does he want to go to college? Kind of be a part of that conversation. But then I think there's something else I'm supposed to do. And so I'm just kind of waiting for that to unfold.
Yeah. And then also this is just a really broad question, but again, going back to business, of just what's some of the best business advice you've been given, or just experience that you would share with others who have a small business or are part of a big business or whatever that may be?
Yeah. Let's see. That's kind of a loaded question. I would say first, think about your own brand. And it doesn't matter if you're straight out of school or if you've been doing this, 30, 40 years. What do you want to be known for? And to be able to lead with integrity and to lay your pillow on your head at night and know you've done the right thing. So sometimes the right thing is a hard thing to do. It could even be having to let someone in the organization go, right, for whatever reason. But have you done it in the most honest way? You've been truthful, forthright. You have your integrity in every business dealing. That is worth protecting from day one. And it's so easy to lose it, but it can take you, your career to grow it and strengthen it. But to me, that's the number one thing. So whatever level of success you obtain, do it with integrity, and you'll never regret it. It might mean in some ways you feel like you're taking a slower road, but again, it's something that is yours and you can hang your hat on it. Secondly, I would say as you go through your business, your career, whatever it is, know yourself and be authentic to yourself. There are many years when I felt like I was trying to fit a mold because I would see people who were successful in that mold. What are the elements of it that the business demands you be? So, I needed to be excellent at financial acumen because I was responsible for a pretty hefty P&L. I was pretty responsible for leading a team who depended on me, and for putting out great product. But the how I got it done, besides through a manner of integrity, was personal. And so, be yourself. No one, you hear the old phrase, "No one can be you but you." Mm-hmm. And I think that really sets you apart, and you create your own worth that other people will see and need, and it's authentic, so you never have to fake it, right? So integrity, and then be your authentic self, and wherever that takes you, you're going to have confidence that goes along with it.
Mm-hmm. And are there any daily rituals, or even, it doesn't have to be daily or weekly, just things on a regular basis that you feel have really enhanced your focus and just business life and approach to things?
Yeah. The only thing I do on the daily is drink a lot of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's a latte, and I made my one already this morning. I think being healthy is a big one. And I've always been a workout enthusiast. And it changed through the years. Of course, when I was in college, it was aerobics, right? I mean, that's what everyone in the 80s did. And I was a fitness instructor till into my 40s, and then I finally gave that up and said, I'll just be, your most enthusiastic, attendee. But whatever you choose to do to keep your fitness up, I think it's important to be healthy. As healthy as what you're given, right? The DNA will unfold as it will unfold, but you can certainly do yourself some good by just staying active, and avoiding the things that will really be to the detriment of your health. Those are the things that I've probably done most consistently, through my life. And I guess I would add to that also, beyond physical fitness, of staying engaged with your friends and family, and that your friends will change through the years. And in fact, through COVID, I became reconnected with some high school friends and college friends. There's this app, I'm sure it's Marco Polo, right? It was just the silliest thing, but we became reconnected. And now I take yearly trips with we call ourselves the Cyclone Sisters, because it's Russellville Cyclones. And there's 5 or 6 of us, and we'll go on trips together. And I have a college group, my sorority sisters, that we do things together. I just got back from a trip to Paris and Provence in September with 4 fabulous women that I had the honor of working with at Walmart. Now, we've all gone on to do other things, but you talk about smart women that make you smarter, that really challenge you in right ways. And so, they're another friend group of mine, and I cherish them all. And they honestly, again, back to the perspective of don't let one thing rule your life. It can't be all about work. They sustain me, along with Tim and my kids and my family.
Yeah. And just last question, but sometimes you listen to a podcast or you finish reading a book and you have all these swirling thoughts, and I really love practical things where you just bring it back down to some sort of practical challenge. So do you have any sort of practical challenge? It can be anything, just to spread more love and positivity in the world, whether that's write a note on the fridge for your spouse, or I try to do all the ones that people recommend. One of them was writing a letter to your dad, telling him what you're thankful for. So that was something for old Brucey, to write him a letter. So yeah, do you have any challenges for me and for others?
Well, I'll tell you what affected me the most was when I was retiring from Walmart, and I put a post on LinkedIn about just reflective, about the years, and honestly how thankful I was for the time there, and the feedback that people gave me in comments, and then just email feedback that I got at work. There were people that would recount something I had said to them that stuck with them, and I didn't even remember saying to them, right? So I think sharing with people, not just what you feel about them, but maybe an impact or something they said that resonated with them. I think just sharing with other people how you feel about them and what kind of impact you've made on their life is very uplifting, and it takes just a split second to do that for someone. I certainly appreciated the comments, but it really impressed upon me that I need to be doing that for other people too. And we're also interconnected. That it's a feel-good moment for someone that might really need that. So that's just one practical thing that I intend to keep doing.
Yeah, well, that's a great challenge. Very straightforward. Everyone can find one person that they're thankful for and express that to them. So yeah, it's been great chatting, and thanks for letting me come over. We had to switch locations last minute, so we're here at your place now, and thanks for coming.
Hey, enjoyed it. Thank you, Andrew.
Yep, thank you.
All right.